Welcome, Night Owls. We've got a new spiel for you. Are you ready for it? Because here we go. Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast and Inviting Moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We chat fantasy, romantasy, dark romance, and thriller novels.
Yes, all things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy.
Sometimes a lot of spicy, like tonight.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, fan theories, and just kind of things that we like. We have star ratings. We have a lot more new things coming up.
New
in
things.
This episode and
Interviews,
episodes to come.
We've got all kinds of things. Yeah, we got to talk about it. I'm excited. Okay, here we go.
Yes, we do. But first, content warning, because that's important. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other tense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
And of course, going forward from here, as we will always have, we're going to have lots of spoilers for this book, Game On, the third book in the Into Darkness series. So consider this your spoiler warning.
Let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
Okay, so tonight's drink of the episode, well, it's going to be weird because I'm going to film one that's like green because I feel like that's on brand to like what I've done for this series so far. What I've done so far for this series is that I've actually had a colorful drink that matches the book. And so while I am still going to do that for this series, for the episode, I'm actually doing a drink in our signature cup that is from Garage Craft Studio, but also you can't tell what it is. And that's by design. Stella, our lead in this, has chronic gastritis. And so she doesn't drink actually any alcohol like the majority of the book. And this is kind of what helps her in multiple ways with her chronic illness, but also in her issues with Tyler. It's a way for her to be like very even keeled with him and kind of remain in control. And she just doesn't drink. So she's not vulnerable in that way. And so it's actually just ice water. So it's going to be called Stella's Rescue. That's all it is. We talked about emotional support water bottles in previous episodes, and I feel like our girl Stella would definitely have one of these. I also have saltines. I have a bag of saltines. So our drink and snack of the episode is ice water and saltines. It's very specific to Stella and to Tyler. Tyler, who grew up with like food scarcity as a child, always has snacks with him, notices that Stella doesn't eat and really picks up on the fact that something's going on and puts it together. And so she can eat saltines, which we find out, and ice water is like a reprieve for her that she can kind of do well with is water. And so I wanted to pick this drink. Obviously, folks are going to say, oh, well, Danny, you've never done ice water. Ice water is an easy one. Why did you pick this? No, well, actually, our author, Navessa Allen, has gastritis. And so this is a nod to something she goes through. And yes, it's ice water, but I am doing a colorful drink for you all. Don't worry. It'll be on the gram. You'll see, on our socials, something colorful that fits the cover of the book. But I thought ice water in particular to our character lead, Stella, it is appropriate. And the snacks are a critical part of something that drives these two together in a way that you wouldn't think would be a vulnerability, especially not for Tyler. So it really just, I thought, made sense to do something a little bit different, given that while alcohol is very present in this, especially for Stella's brother who gets him in a pickle in the first place, I didn't want to go that route. I thought it would be cool to do something different. So Stella's Rescue, some ice water there, and that's her emotional support water bottle, which I would imagine that even though it was never disclosed, I feel like she'd probably have one.
Oh, for sure. She would for sure. And be black.
Yeah, exactly. So cheers.
Cheers.
Tonight, again, we're diving into Game On by Navessa Allen. So whether you're reading along with us or just here for the book talk, we're glad you're here. We are going to be doing a new episode style. So going forward, starting this month in May, and then just going forward from here forever. Anathema and that series was really our last deep dive through Eldritch, and we're no longer going to be doing that. We feel like, I don't know, why do you think we went for this change, Michelle? I'll let you go first.
A lot. There are so many podcasts that deep dive, and while we do love breaking down the chapters and talking about specific themes and, all the nitty gritty of what happens in books, our TBR is so long. And I feel like when we do that, especially when we do massive books, which all of our books are massive for the most part, that's what she said, that our TBR is just never going to end. And we're only going to go through like a small amount of books in our podcast. And we wanted to hit a lot more books throughout the year, really, and just kind of expand the type of series that we're talking about and, you know, just cover more stuff. And it allows opportunities for more interviews without having like, 3-hour long
Yes.
episodes, which I know
Right.
our listeners love hearing our voices, but sometimes those are doozies.
Right. And not only that, but I feel like when we were stacking those on top of each other, you kind of missing the mark of if you've read the book, you've read the book. I don't know that
Hmm.
there's value in every single story going deep dive and
Right.
recapping every single thing. If you've read the book and we're talking about the book and you understand it, let's high level it. And that kind of brings me to our new charts that we're going to be using. So now we've always kind of like vaguely talked about what we thought about something and we never really rated it. Like, and I wouldn't say vaguely, like we've always gone into like full detail about what we thought, even in detail of chapters of specifically what we felt about those things. I mean, obviously, I think that most of our books that we've covered for the most part are 4 or 5 stars, especially if we're doing deep dives, are usually already a 5 star because the amount of time that we would spend on a series that we hated just doesn't really make logical sense. But what we are doing now, since we're going to be adding so many new books that we might not have covered before, or we'll be going to be talking about more things over the course of time, especially with interview guests and things of that nature. I think our rating system is an important addition that we're going to be adding to the show. So, one thing that we have are 2 breakdown charts that Michelle mostly put together that I helped with here and there. And it's basically a rubric system that is going to be available on our Instagram, but one is going to be our star rating guide. So, it's going to go from 1 to 5 stars, and then our spice rating guide, which, some of you may be more interested in that. I can't judge you, and I would never anyway, is from 1 pepper to 5 peppers in spice. I think the difference for us in our pepper rating is that we don't ever define 5 peppers as being, oh, there's so much spice that there's no plot. We really are defining it as there's so much spice that maybe they're covering, maybe the spice is part of a taboo element of the plot, or they're really heavily triggering elements, very frequent in nature, but it is purposeful and it enhances the story and it's deliberate. So I don't know that we would read or cover books on the show that didn't have deliberate spice and was just spice for shock value. But yeah, I think that that's kind of where our intent would be for that. So without further ado, Michelle, you want to describe some of our 1 through 5 for stars?
Okay, so let's get into the star rating guide. So you can obviously follow along with us on our socials, but what I have, because I love a neat chart, on the left-hand side is like the stars, and in the middle part, there are elements when you're looking at the chart, and it has different sort of aspects like the character development, the setting, the plot in general, and then emotional connection or how the reader connects to the characters. So, for example, a 5-star rating has complex characters. The setting is immersive, meaning you feel like you can literally go and imagine that place. Both positive and negative. They're intricate. The plot is very intricately woven together. It's very original. You feel an emotional connection to the characters and the story. And really, it's just the pacing is like from the very beginning, you're just like getting hit with a whole bunch of stuff and you just never want to put it down. So that's what our 5-star is. And, going down the chart, basically how I set it up with the 6 different aspects of your elements. If it's not hitting one thing, then you're going to the star level below. So, which is, I feel like the differentiation between a 4-star and a 5-star is like very minimal in terms of like, they're still complex characters, but they're more layered. They're not as in depth. It's missing something, a little element. The setting is well developed, but, you can't really picture yourself being in there as much. The plot is definitely developed, but there's some holes that you can kind of poke into it. Not a lot. You feel that you can relate to these characters, but there's some like flawed elements. So it's very like getting nitpicky in terms of getting from a 4 to a 5. So 4s are definitely worth reading. Absolutely. Is it going to change your life? Maybe not, but you're going to have a good time reading. So, and that's, typically we only cover 4s and 5 stars. I don't think we've ever rated a book a 3-star that we've read
I think
in
we
deep
had one
dive.
thriller that was
Okay.
like a while ago for us. That
Yeah.
might have been a low scoring.
Right. Yeah. The thrillers tend to be, because thrillers, it's hard to get the immersive setting, right? It's hard to picture that
Yeah.
being there sometimes. And sometimes it's hard to develop
Sometimes there's just a
characters
lot of
in one
plot
book.
holes in thrillers.
Yeah.
Yes, because they're short
Yeah.
too. And I feel like they're like quick, sometimes what they call beach read or airplane reads.
Right.
And for that reason can lack plot development. And
Right.
for some people that could be a 4 or 5 because they're just reading for vibes and they're not here to
Mhm.
notice plot holes. And good for you.
Absolutely.
You know, these are subjective. That's a really important
Yes.
piece of this. These are our star rating guides. That doesn't mean that they're yours, and it doesn't mean that we're judging your star ratings. Does it mean we have our opinions? Yeah, it does. But it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that there's a right or wrong way to star rate or that this is the best way or
Mhm.
any such thing. This is just a guide, but it's available. It'll be available on our socials, so you can take a look at our new star rating guide and take a look. So thank you, Michelle, for walking us through that. It's up to you. Do you want to walk through the spice chart too, or would you like me to take that
You
one?
can handle the spice chart, even though you get a kick out of me talking about spice.
I do. Well, it's a good time. Yeah. So the spice rating guide, very similar in design, you know, ranking from 5 being the most spicy to 1 being the least spicy. And I think it's, you know, 1 would be closed door. Maybe it's a scene that's suggested and you don't even see anything on page. Or maybe there's little to no romance at all. Kiss on the cheek, hug, something like that. Or it's really not a plot driver. Maybe there's suggested romance and it's off page, but it would be a 1 pepper in the sense that it doesn't build plot. And if you remove it entirely, the story still stands. That for me would be 1 pepper. 2 peppers, very similar, mostly off page. Again, you could remove it and it's not going to matter if the plot is driven by the spice or not. I think 3 peppers and above, you're going to have 2 or more detailed scenes. Need it there because it's part of the storytelling. So in Michelle's chart, she writes relevant, but doesn't necessarily have to drive plot. It can, it cannot. Either way, I think 3 peppers, it's up to you. 4 and 5, you're absolutely driving plot. If you're not driving plot by 4 or 5, throw the whole thing out, in our opinion. Because the spice should have a reason for being there, and it should have a reason that pushes the envelope if it's a 5 pepper, and there should be a reason why we're doing something taboo or going into triggering subjects in depth. Those are the things that are going to rate a 4 or a 5.
Right.
The 3 pepper identifies that there's more than one open door scene and that it's going to be graphic in nature. And the graphic just increases from there. But I think that is basically our star rating guide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
So those are our star rating and our pepper rating. So without further ado, let's rank Game On before we get into it. So Michelle, hit us with your star rating and your pepper rating for Game On.
So for my star rating, I am, let me pull up my chart so I can look at all my elements.
Oh.
So for Game On, this was my favorite one of the 3 in the Into Darkness series. It was. I
am shook by that. Oh, let me preface by saying
time.
that we have not talked about how we felt about this book.
No.
We usually talk about it in advance, and we did not on this. We literally were like, no, we're not going to talk about it until we go through it. So neither one of us know our star rating yet. We haven't discussed it at all. We haven't talked about how we felt about this book. Okay. Interesting take. I'm listening. Keep going.
It was my favorite. There were some elements that I'm like, you know, I've realized what's not for me. Not that it's bad. It's just not for me.
That's fair.
But in terms of star rating, I enjoyed the characters. I was connected with the characters. I can just tell Navessa had a lot of fun with this book. Because when you're coming from Caught Up explored some deep elements. And yes, there was some fun banter, but it was more dark and more serious. Here, we had a lot of fun. So, the audiobook was just spot on. And so I enjoy this. I gave this a 5-star just because it hits everything for me and everything for my guide. So I can check off everything.
Okay.
But okay. So that's my star rating. What's your star rating?
So I have given every book in this series a 5 so far. I loved Lights Out. And I have to say that It's a 5 for me too, but not for the same reasons. It wasn't my
Okay.
favorite. I still think Caught Up was my favorite. I loved Lights Out
Okay.
too, but what I liked about it, it was true to Into Darkness. So
Hmm.
remembering that Navessa Allen's intent was to go lights out, little bit dark, caught up, darker, game on, darkest. So in terms of morally gray, in terms of spice and taboo topics, in terms of general darkness of theming and what happens in Game On, I would say that hits all the marks. So for me, the author's purpose was achieved. The complex characters piece, they tie out all the characters of the first 2 books. There's a definite emotional connection to everything that's going on. I think it's original. The setting's immersive. Again, we're tying out the other characters from books 1 and 2. And I read this book in like 2 days. Okay. So couldn't put it down. Absolutely would recommend this series. Again, so I'm in the 5-star category, just albeit a little bit different reasoning. I still think that you're spot on in your assessment. And that's why I like that we have this guide now, because it's kind of guiding our discussion of how we got to our star rating and why it meets those qualities for us.
Yeah. So that leads to our spice rating. Because so this book is spicy from the beginning, as are all of her books.
Yeah.
You know, it's
they're all 5s.
Spice. Yes, they are. They're all 5s. And I like how each book in this series explores a different sort of like kink or taboo topic.
Correct.
So it's not like overplayed. You know, you get the mask kink and stalker from Lights Out, and then you have voyeurism and Caught Up, and then you get your brat kink here, which
yes. We're not sure about it. Okay.
I was not the biggest fan of
it,
and that's just me personally. Here. Yeah, that was a little bit of me. Like, I'm all for reading like a man being like, sit your ass down, be like, yes, sir. But like the whole, I don't know what it was, but hearing a lot of it from Tyler's perspective, I was like, it's just not because he was like, yes, brat, like the entire time, and like his brain, he was like, brat. I'm like, okay. So that wasn't my thing. The whole with AJ and Tyler and Stella, fine.
We like the white shoes.
That was enjoyable. That was because
and this was like kind of a first white shoes type thing for her too, of like bringing that in more deliberately. Okay, I would agree too. It's definitely 5. I think that it explores the topic in depth. It does enhance the story without doubt, and it is intense and more frequent in nature. There are triggering elements to it as well, and it is a key part of Tyler's story arc of him identifying himself and kind of who he is. I think that there's elements to this that, some would argue, and some of the 1-stars argued, like, what is this? What did I just read? And for those, I feel like there's a level of depth here that's entirely deliberate from Navessa Allen's point of view. And the fact remains that Tyler was not a likable character. Okay. He was a fucking asshole. There's really no nice way to say it. Okay. He was not likable. I remember texting you actually, and not just you, several other people, and being like, I really want to know how Navessa Allen's going to get me to like this Tyler character, because I've hated him in the first 2 books. He just was an asshole. And so the fact that he has a brat kink was just like hysterically funny to me and made total sense. And she actually posted, there was an interview with her with Slow Burn, who they did the interview with her. So Slow Burn is part of her publishing group through Zando Books. And they did an interview segment with her on Instagram. And she said, don't think it isn't intentional that Tyler would have a brat kink. We all knew he needed to be punished for his behaviors. And, whether he likes it or not, it is not important. The fact remains, he needed some discipline in his body, basically. And so that made a lot of sense to me. But it also speaks again to the intention behind what Navessa has built here with this trilogy, and how much she's loved these characters to give them, yes, spicy, but spicy with intention, even if it's taboo or triggering in nature, which all of these books are exceptionally triggering in nature. There's murder and kidnapping and I mean all kinds of abuse and off page and on page. I mean just crazy amounts of things that happen in these 3 books. So definitely hits all the elements for a 5 pepper star rating from me as well.
I feel like people who rate her books, or this book in particular, a 1 star, a lot of her writing, you have to understand trauma and how like traumatic brains work and how how someone becomes a survivor and adapts their personality to those sort of aspects. And
Yes.
I feel like people who rate these 1 star don't necessarily understand how to connect with that or empathize with a survivor mentality or trauma. Yes, I love that. You have no trauma, not on this show. So, unfortunately,
yes.
that is something that
unfortunately,
I think we both connect with. Not necessarily their exact trauma, but trauma in general. So you can you understand how a traumatic mind works from a young age, the abandonment, the, just not having any sort of security in yourself and how that shapes who you become as an adult. And it's just really important aspect of protecting children ultimately, right? And making sure you're safe as a child so you don't grow up to be fucking Tyler, a complete asshole. And, down with the patriarchy for his entire adult life. That was his main mission.
Yes. But we get it.
We do.
We get it.
Absolutely.
And we get why he automatically makes a lot of assumptions about Stella and her life. And that assumes she can't actually tattoo either. He just such, yeah.
He was
so.
It's I'm surprised and then Stella has her own doing
trauma, which is so fucked up.
That whole
the car accident thing.
Yes. Such a mean girl. I was so furious. And the fact that bitch kept popping up thinking she is untouchable. Oh, I loved that she got what was coming to her in the end. And her storyline wrapped up and, she ended up, off. I just, every time she popped up, I'm like, can we just, and I like that. So Tyler, he inserts himself as I will threaten her. And he threatens her, don't you ever come over here and all this, ever again. She tries him, but Tyler lets Stella handle it. And so Stella could deal with her trauma and how all this fucking nonsense happened. And that whole storyline pissed me off because there's literally a girl who can't walk. And you're just walking around doing the same nonsense your entire life and not owning up to it. My mind was blown that entire time. I was irate.
Yeah. And I think that's it. It talks to privilege, that there's these ways that perceived privilege exists and then real privilege exists, and how there can be protections in place for certain people that just don't exist for others. And I think that's something that Tyler is very pissed about and believes it of Stella, and finds out very quickly that he's completely misjudged this whole situation. And it's such a massive part of the story that's being told here. I think the level of detail of the underlying themes of this story is something that I don't know that is talked about enough. I think that there's a lot there to this book.
Sure. So before we get into themes, let's talk favorite character and book, and then plus favorite characters in the whole series, because we're wrapping up the series with this book. So who's your favorite character overall in Game On?
In Game On.
Yeah, and Game On first.
Who is my favorite character? So I think in this story, my favorite character who had me laughing the most, or who I most related to, was probably Stella, actually, even though she had, kind of the silver spoon thing. I thought she also went through some really traumatic events that made me feel that she was ultimately very misunderstood and knew that about herself, but also felt comfortable enough to own herself and own the things that she had done wrong. And also she's an older FMC. I think she's our oldest one out of the 3. And I was like, thank God, Navessa, you gave us a girl who's in her 30s. Thank you. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate you, Navessa. Thank you for giving us someone in her 30s. I much appreciated. Yes.
I like how that aspect was also part of her and Tyler's dynamic, that like he would poke at her or she would poke at him for being like in his 20s and shit. It was just
Yeah.
it was funny just because, so my husband's younger than me, and when I was I was like 30 and he was 20, he would always say some stupid stuff. So it just kind of was like, oh, that's really funny reading on page because I lived that, and that's hilarious. He's also blonde like Tyler, which was also really funny. So I'm like, oh, blonde. Okay. Usually the blondes, and I like how Navessa even she had so many funny lines about him being blonde. He's like, you're talking way too much for being blonde, or that's a big voice for you. Like, sit your blonde ass down. So I thought that was hilarious, and just me having a blonde man at home just made that even more funny to just read about. I did like that their age dynamic. It just their dynamic in general with their differences.
And but who could forget Amos the parrot? Okay, because he was a great character too.
Bitch.
I love a side pet. Yeah, I love a side pet bird. Okay, and he said some hilarious shit in this book. So he was definitely. I was always like, "Where's Amos? What are we doing with? Did we feed Amos today? What's going on?" I'm like thinking in the back of my mind because I'm just such like a dog mom that translates to book pet mom. And the way I loved Amos in this book too, I was like, "Oh,
he was hilarious."
I loved having a pet. So we had a pet and that was great.
And the audiobook too, like the voice would change, be like, "Hey, bitch," like a parrot's voice. So
oh, that's funny.
It made it so the audiobook was top tier for this book. I love a good, not just dual POV, but you have two narrators going at the same time all throughout the entire book. There's actually a third narrator, which I'll talk about the bonus content when we get to that part. And yeah, no, it was great. I loved Amos. So for me, I really enjoyed AJ just because he brought so much balance to both of those characters, because they're like on two different ends of the spectrum of like, you know, their anger and aggression and like their personalities. And AJ was kind of just like the in between.
Even keel. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and he's, you know, when you think of like what they're like in a throuple type relationship,
Yes,
you know, bringing a third dynamic in would cause chaos, but really he balanced them both out because he's also of privilege too, but he doesn't, and like he enjoys his parts of his privilege, but he's not an ass about everything, and he like just brings balance of both worlds. So I actually enjoyed reading about him a lot in this series. He was just like kind of like the perfect, just calm, easygoing, you know, letting Stella do her thing, letting Tyler do his thing, and just kind of bringing them together that they needed, because they're just two completely different wild personalities.
They're both like incendiary. Yeah, they're both like just, you know, a hair's breadth away from losing their shit on a regular basis. Like, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think you asked what was your
favorite couple. Yes.
Of the whole series.
I already said mine, so.
I mean, huh?
I already said mine.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, so then mine's obviously from Caught Up. So for me, I liked Nico and Lauren, so they were my favorites, but yeah, I think all of them had their own moments that made them likable. Like, I love Josh and Allie too. I think each couple had their own things, but for me, it's really close for Josh and Allie, but I felt like Nico and Lauren to me were the most, out of all the couples, overcame things together in a sense and support each other the most, in my opinion, of working through things. And I think it's just because their storyline worked like that, but also just their love story was just, they were there for each other, and he saw her as who she was and vice versa. And there wasn't any like mystery to that. Whereas Josh and Allie, you know, she kind of knows what he does, but she doesn't know his background or his story yet. Like, and that's kind of true for Nico and Lauren too. Like, he watches her, but she doesn't know that he's been watching out for her. for years, which I think is a different element than the reverse.
Right.
So it's just, there's more depth to them. And I think that's why I
Mhm.
liked them more for me.
That's fair.
It's more
That's
history.
fair.
They had a longer years
Yeah.
of history. And I'm surprised I'm even saying that because it's a second chance. And I like am not a second
Not.
chance romance
No, you're
person. So
not.
I'm like, clearly, like, maybe I am because for some reason
With the
I'm like,
right
okay with,
conditions.
yeah, I guess the absolute right conditions. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
What about you?
Okay.
Favorite moment?
So, favorite moment in Game On, there's so many good ones that just
Mm-hmm.
I was laughing the entire time that I was listening to this book just because of their banter, which is why they were my favorite couple because I enjoyed their banter more.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah. They had great banter.
their history is a little bit different. They're enemies to lovers in terms of like things that we've read,
Yeah.
like and how their relationship started. So I would say, in terms of any enemies to lovers that we read so far, I think theirs is
Mm-hmm.
more true to the trope. And just the whole getting started in the tattoo shop, that whole interaction between them, hearing from both perspectives too. I like how we have Tyler's perspective and then we have Stella's perspective immediately afterwards of like what's going on in the tattoo shop. So him obviously being a total asshole and like him mentally checking himself, but her checking him and being like, I'm not gonna let this guy be a dick to me, and really just show how strong of a personality she has. So when he's like, oh,
Yeah.
did you draw that yourself? And then in the tattoo shop, they literally almost start like hate fucking.
Yeah.
And then her worker
Coworker.
comes in. Yeah. Comes in, is like, I don't know about that. But then they have this quote, like, because they were like trying to build tension, right? And she tells him, oh, please, you probably fuck like you're scooting a chair closer to a table. And then he responds, oh, you probably fuck like a bored fitness model bouncing on a stability ball. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, who talks to people this way? Like, what? So just like their first initial reaction of like, this is gonna be good. Like, this is gonna be, it just kind of set the tone for the rest of the book, and all of like their banter, them going down when they go to like his secret game, his gambling ring. And she's like, I'm not going down this fucking tunnel, when she's like with her brother. She's like, this is how I die. This is where we die. And I don't blame her. If I was told, be like, here, go to this secret, super secret, illegal gambling ring, but you have to go down a manhole. Fuck no.
Yeah.
Could be spiders down there.
Exactly. Yeah, and she makes this comment too, like really early on, where she's like, "What is happening now?" And it's like she's like, "What was happening right now? I hated men. Unfortunately, I was also attracted to them against my will." And I just like died. I was like hysterically,
Yes.
like quotes like that where you're just like, "Oh my god." And you're like, oh, because you're just like, why is men? Why are men? What is
Well,
happening? You know?
and like, so for a lot of this book, or a lot of this series, a lot of like the funny stuff is internal of what like they're saying, which is, I'm very interested
Mm-hmm.
to see how that plays out on camera, because especially with Lights
Yeah.
Out, what Josh is hilarious in his brain, but then he comes across as like, budget Batman, when he like has his like little voice and his mask and everything. So we'll see how that plays across screen. But like their banter isn't just in their head, it's also back and forth when
Yeah.
they're together. So yeah.
Agree. And I think there's a lot of mixed feelings about this whole series, but I would say
Mhm.
one of my favorite moments in this book was actually the food scarcity thing, which hence why our drink of the episode is ice water. Is there's a scene towards the end of the book where she needs a snack, and not only had he
Mhm.
already had snacks, because in one of his one of his scenes where he's like driving to the gym or something, he mentioned his snacks, but like I knew it was like, okay, that's a weird mention. So it was identifying two things. One, food scarcity was like a really big thing in his life. He was hungry often as a child, and therefore made sure that no matter what, he always had access to food, whether that be in his car, whether that be, you know, wherever he was going to be. He always made sure that he had some kind of sustenance with him because growing up, that wasn't always readily available. And I thought that that was a very, very interesting trauma built in piece that is true to people who have food scarcity. So I liked that touch, but what I liked more was that Tyler had a learning moment where he noticed something about her, and the snacks he had in his car started to become snacks she could eat because of her gastritis. So hence he had added saltines and like different things that were like gluten-free, easy to process, like cracker things that taste like nothing, but at least it's some kind of calorie for her that
Mm-hmm.
could give her something. And so that moment for me of him fully not redeeming, but coming to terms with not just thinking of himself was a big change for him. And I liked that part of it. I also like the humor too. Of course, their banter was great. I think
Right.
it set up well for the spicy scenes. It made them a lot more enjoyable to read because that whole enemies to lovers piece was there, and it definitely read on page that way for me. So that was probably my overarching favorite part of it.
Right. And you mentioned that about him not really be redeeming. Is he not in the end after everything? Is he not a
Oh, he's
redeemable
definitely
character?
redeeming.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think he is. I think it's difficult because of what I mean, she's there because she's being blackmailed. The only reason she's
Hmm.
helping him is because he's blackmailing her. I mean, that's going to take a long time to
Because
get over the hump of.
he extorted
Yes.
her underage brother
Mhm.
into losing
Mhm.
what, $3 million in an
$3
illegal
million
gambling ring,
in illegal gambling. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and then she's being
That's how we
blackmailed
start out.
to make
So
up for
like
it.
that's going to take a little bit of time to undo, you
A
know.
little bit.
Yes.
But I
So
think that redemption, because it's not this story. I mean, yes, there's Tyler's redemption, but then we also have like his dad's redemption, at least in his perspective. Like his
yes. Yep.
dad, his entire time has been like
He's like
looking
a
for
nice
him.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like he wanted to know where he went and everything.
Richard.
And then,
Poor Richard.
yeah, and then there's like this perspective on family because they go to his aunt's house, and you would expect like the aunt to
Oh
be
my
more on like
God.
his side, but his aunt's like, she's a bitch.
She's a
She's
bitch.
awful. She is awful. She is, and
Yeah.
it
She
shows
hates
that
rich people.
well, yeah, but it shows like the manipulation isn't
Oh,
just
yeah.
like a wealthy people thing. It is all
Nope.
classes because
Correct.
his family manipulated him into thinking that his father was trash and like
Right.
abandoned them.
Oh, they don't
And
love
that's
you because they
really
have
not,
money. Like that
yeah,
wasn't
that's
even
really
it
not the
at all. It had
thing.
nothing to do with it.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
he
crazy.
was going through a divorce, and, they didn't really meet on the best terms, but he
No.
wanted to be a part of his son's life, and he never got that chance. So I liked that aspect that he, yeah, like, because his mom's gone, and so he gets his family. He gets to start another family ultimately, and kind of grow that relationship. So I did like how that
Yeah.
ending kind of wrapped that and concluded that story arc for him.
Yeah. And then I also liked the part of it that now he's legitimized in his wealth, and now, you know, he has other career opportunities basically because of Richard. Because like what's he gonna do after this, right? So now like his whole scheming life is like over. So what's he gonna do now?
He
But
also is
he
like
has
a
his
partial
investments. Yes.
it
He
yes,
has
he's
his
an investor
investments
in
in
um
Velvet.
yes, Velvet, yes. So that's a legitimate business.
No, of course. But what I'm saying is that the level of wealth that Stella's at now is
Mhm.
he's at the same basic level because of his dad
Right.
now. And so
Right.
that whole world that he was kind of stepping into, not feeling like it was his own, kind of becomes his own by the end of the book. And he's able to, you know, there's legitimacy to that piece as well. But yeah.
Which, I mean, how, even though he like doesn't, I don't know, commit illegal gambling rings now, like it's not like he can live a normal life. How much of that did he claim on his taxes, you know? You can't
Yes.
like you can't continue on like that, and obviously like the government isn't going to be like, well, you're a tax-paying citizen now. We're just going to forgive that gambling ring you ran for almost a decade. You know?
Well,
That's
and so like let's talk about that because I think the idea that he starts saying like, hey, these people might not be as evil as you think they are, Stella, but they're all being blackmailed by different things. And so that
Yeah.
it also plays with this idea of what is a valid punishment, because you have the employees of her parents that are all there and they're all hand selected by Tyler because they all have some kind of dirt. They're all doing something that they shouldn't be doing that can implode on them. Therefore, they're able to be blackmailed into if not paying him back if they start to lose. And I thought that play on morality was very interesting to read about.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it would be a good topic to bring up here because the choices for some of them weren't illegal. And there's this play on this, right? Of like, what's illegal, right? End quote. But is it moral? Is it just? Regardless of whether it's breaking an actual law. And the lengths maybe somebody would go to keep information that is damaging to their reputation under wraps, and how he could exploit that in his gambling scheme. I thought all of that was very interesting.
It reminded me of like Saw, the whole movie series, because
Yeah. Yes.
he's bringing all these people in that have had done their sins and now he must escape. And, he's the little guy on the tricycle. But yeah, when he starts listing off all of like the things that they're doing wrong and, so they deserve to be caught doing this big illegal thing because they're like sleeping with someone that's like not their spouse or whatever else he listed. He listed like 4 or 5 different things. I don't think it's Tyler's place to bring them justice. Like, who is he, Mr. orchestrating this entire legal gambling ring? Like, I'm sorry. Why are you the chosen one to bring down the patriarchy in this entire book? So that was my like, yes, they're doing something wrong. Like, don't commit infidelity, but getting them on something else that he orchestrated, that's also like, that's not justice either, or at least that's what I think. I don't think that's justice.
That brings us back to Maddie, though, who got off on something she should have served time for and caused irreparable harm and was part of a likely accidental or maybe deliberate death of somebody on her summer stay on a boat somewhere. Right. And then whoever knows what else has been buried under the hatch for her. And Tyler's like, vigilante justice, I will get her. And Stella's like, I approve of this message. I'm okay with this. But again, levels of morality, what's okay with going after, what isn't, and like calling her out on something publicly was the move. And that's okay, because she, at this point,
Max was evil. She was like, why? I don't understand why you're being so mean. Oh, that entire part. And so, but like, Maddie's portrayed
no empathy
because she is evil. Yeah. And she doesn't have empathy. She keeps doing what she's doing, intentionally knowing she's going to get away with it. But like the other employees, we don't really know. Like, I'm not saying the one who's committing infidelity, like that's the right thing, but the other ones,
it's not
like,
illegal.
what is the level of right? I would say like hitting someone,
framing your best friend for running someone over,
that is illegal.
That is illegal as fuck.
Murdering someone even accidentally, that's called manslaughter.
Correct.
You can't do that, not have consequences. No. So or
believe the consequences don't apply to you, which is her.
Yes.
That speaking on privilege.
She got what she deserved, ultimately.
She did. And we're happy about it. At least
we are very much.
Yeah.
So in this series, I feel like morally gray is the perfect description of all the men. But I feel like Tyler, in his perspective of morally gray, kind of gets, I don't want to say it gets darker, but it gets more blurry because he's doing all of these wrong things, but it's literally for a right reason, his vigilante justice. It's not just, and a lot of it's not personal, like personally benefiting him, right? Because if some of these guys or some of these like wealthy people, they got what was coming to them, or they became imprisoned for their gambling ring or whatever, or they're owing him money, which the owing him money does benefit him ultimately. But I feel like some of it was more of like you get what you deserve and you're just gonna get it, whether it benefits me or not. He does collect the money, so that's where the gray part comes in, where he's benefiting off of these wrong people. And Stella does point that out multiple times, that he's just preying on people like Blake. But Josh and his morally gray was so he can sleep with her. So I feel like with Tyler, his was a little bit more complex in terms of his vendetta.
Let's talk about that, right? So Into Darkness, that's intentional. Navessa is exploring something totally different with Josh than she is with Nico, than she is with Tyler. And I think the levels of depth regarding who they are in complexity of like what's quote unquote bad and also quote unquote morally gray, on top of how they treat the women they're with, all goes in darkness degrees. So I think we start with Josh, who's basically a golden retriever, and we work our way darker from there, because Nico is not Josh at all.
No.
And then Tyler is
neither of them.
Not Nico or Josh at all. At all. And it takes a very long time for Tyler's exterior to soften towards Stella, or really anyone, because of the abuse that he's gone through. And Nico, on the other hand, had loved her before and just has always had her on his radar. Josh, thought she was cute or whatever, but he has his own demons, and he, stalks her and breaks into her house. So they all are pretty dark for different reasons. And I think what's really interesting to me is the people who loved book 1 and then are so quick to be like 2 and 3 were like really like too dark, or like I just couldn't go there or whatever. And I'm like, so these types of illegal are okay, but like these other 2 types, like are we now like, that's wild. Like that's wild to me, because I read a whole bunch of 1 stars for, right. Like I read a whole bunch of 1 stars for Caught Up, Lights Out, and Game On, just because I was curious. I was trying to understand like what's happening here. And I thought it was very interesting how that idea of morality now plays into book reviews, because you're sitting here telling me that Josh is like, okay, golden retriever. He broke into her house.
All of her things.
He hacked her internet. He helped her accidentally murder somebody.
Yeah. And no, he's fine. He's fine because deep down he cared, and he's hot. That is it. Because I see this all over like TikTok and Bookstagram, like, murder and, mask if there's hot and have abs, and, his thingy is, that's fine. If he's ugly, no, that's police, but slap a 6-pack on him, he's okay. Huh?
We're ugly.
Exactly. That's why we're blurring morality. That's exactly why we're blurring morality. People are like, it's okay because he's hot.
No, it's okay because it's an Into Darkness series. That's why it's okay. Navessa wrote a fictional world. Everyone just relax, okay? Everyone relax. But I was trying to get at, why is Josh like the most favorite? Like, because the 1 stars will be like, oh, went down from here, Lights Out was the best one, and then Caught Up and Game On were just, don't even waste your time. And I'm like, why was it the best one? What makes you say that? What's behind that? I think
people just liked the mask kink. So, and that's a big thing on Bookstagram. People just like the mask kink, and that's what Lights Out is. And that's
thing, I guess.
Yeah, and that's not what the other 2 are. Although Nico does stalk a little bit, and Tyler technically does stalk her whole family, not just her. Her whole family tracks them. I
mean, that's how he ends up in her tattoo parlor in the first place.
Hey,
he knows who she is.
Yeah. So they're stalking there. They just don't have like an expensive, unique mask with an expensive, very unique 4-poster bed. So that he got custom made.
I guess. And I don't know, maybe like people like the idea of the internet thing, of that whole mystery of, or maybe like, I don't know.
They seem more, I would say like Josh and Allie are more like tangible characters in terms of like what you
That's
can
true.
literally scroll through your phone and see. You see the social media
Yeah.
influencers, and
Yeah, yeah.
she's just a nurse. Like she's a
Right.
nurse with like a mob tie, but that
Hi. Right.
without
But
that, she's a nurse. But you don't
whereas
really
Nico and
see
Lauren are
no,
not your
they're not
average
tangible,
people, and
and neither is
neither
Tyler Stella. They're not
right.
average. I
They're
mean,
not.
there's tattoo
Mm-mm.
artist. Like I would say she's a typical tattoo artist in terms of like how her outward persona, but she
Yeah,
like
her style. Yeah.
who's like
Mm-hmm.
multi-million-dollar family that she's also a black sheep in. Like, so that's not as tangible to people.
No.
So
That doesn't mean it's unlikely or not likely to be real either.
right, neither is
And I
like
think that that's
anything we read.
an
Like, I'm
over
sorry, we don't.
well, right.
Fey
And I think it's
male
an
don't exist.
oversimplification of that. But
Right.
so let's
Um.
talk about special editions and bonus
Mm-hmm.
content for this book because there were quite a few. The one behind me and above me, if you're listening, is the Barnes and Noble edition, and that had one bonus chapter at the end. So for the Barnes and Noble bonus chapter, there is The Debt is the bonus chapter title at the end, but I didn't actually read that one. I read on the Kindle and I didn't get through my bonus chapters. So I thought that I had read a bonus chapter, but I guess the Kindle edition didn't have any. So Michelle, enlighten us, please.
So the audiobook comes with 4 bonus chapters, which were all
Dang.
great. 4. The first one is called The Intruder, which is from Fred's perspective. So we get a third audiobook narrator.
What?
That's Fred the cat, and this is from
Yes.
when Josh first breaks into Allie's house, and it's like the cat's perspective. He's like,
Oh
"Who
my
is
God,
this
that's amazing.
person?" Is hilarious. I loved. Yeah, thank you, Navessa, for giving us a cat perspective. Now
Well,
I
now I
need
got to
an
listen
Amos
to it.
perspective for sure. But yes, happy I got a Fred perspective because he's chaos. The next one is the bookie. So this is Tyler's perspective, and this is when he's first doing a business deal with Nico. So it gives perspective. So this happens before Game On, but in between Caught Up and before Game On. So it
Yeah.
happens basically like right before Game On starts, and it's like their business dealings. Then there's the debt, which is Tyler's perspective, and this has to do with Nico, and this happens after Game On, and kind of their business dealings and how they're going to tie up their business in the end. And the debt isn't just Nico's debt, it's also his own debt to Stella, and how Stella like saves him, and how he owes a debt to Stella, and even though she doesn't feel that way. And then we
Right.
have the brat, which is AJ's perspective. So that's a
Ooh.
spicy one. Yes, that's a spicy one. So
Okay.
an additional one with AJ, which I also enjoyed.
Okay. Well, damn. So that's all on
Mm-hmm.
the audio for this
Yep,
book?
that's all audiobook.
Wow. Okay.
It's
I'll
worth.
have to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely worth
All
it.
right.
All right,
Well,
hit us
that
with it
kind of
down the rabbit
wraps it
hole.
up
Yeah.
for this portion of Game On.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know what you think about the new format of the book, reviews of kind of how we're doing this, and what you think so far of the new setup for the show. We are really excited to start something new and refresh the show a little bit and see what your thoughts are. So let us know.
Yeah.
Let's go moving on to our Down the Rabbit Hole Bookish Rant segment. I kind of alluded to what I was going to talk about already, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit more depth. And that's related to the reviews for Game On and Caught Up, and just the way that they're, for example, genuinely wish I could do this, and it's like the Men in Black blinker. They want to like delete the book from their brain. This is why I prefer standalones. And then somebody wrote 1 star, so that just happened. I wasn't expecting funny Navessa Allen like I know like I know and love, but I didn't laugh and I cringed more times than I can count. And this Grace was responding. She's talking about how at 11% the spice is already starting, and I'm like, well, she's in her 30s, so I feel like maybe I don't. Sometimes I want to know like
And
who are your reviewers? Like give.
right.
I just don't feel like that's like fair.
Well, and Tyler, honestly, from his perspective, it would have been like a power move and almost degrading to her for him to do that. So that plays more of like the enemies thing. Like, I'm going to take this other aspect of you. I'm already going to bring down your whole family. So it's not like the romance started with them.
Right.
It's
Correct.
the physical sex happened. And there's a distinction throughout this entire series. There is a very clear distinction of sex and romance. Like they're not equitable. Sometimes they happen, but a lot of times it's not equitable. So
Yeah. And so then there's another review from this reviewer B who put 1 star for Game On and talked about it as comparing it to the Manosphere, which I don't know if you read or sorry, I don't know if you watched Netflix's Manosphere documentary. There were a whole bunch of clips about this. It's basically about the Andrew Tate podcasting world of basically mansplaining everything to women, and that women need to be led by men. Otherwise, they're not functioning members of society and they can't make decisions for themselves. And this reviewer
you showed me that clip.
Tyler. Yeah. It's comparing Tyler, the character, to that. And the way I'm like, I just don't see that at all.
No.
His driving
his issue wasn't
his love for his mother. His issue had to do with classism,
not gender,
female or male at all.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, did we read the same book? And I just wonder if when people make these types of like decisions, how much of or thoughts about books, like how much of it is your own bias that you're projecting onto these characters, and
how much do you read
is actually what you're reading. Yeah, how much did you actually read of this book? Did you
because if you read like the first chapter, then Tyler's a complete dick and like there's no character development if you read chapter 1, but you have to read the entire. I don't know. I feel like you're valid for not liking a book. Like that's your own like, that's your own personal opinion. But I feel like your thoughts should be valid in not liking a book. So I want like a good explanation. And maybe that's just me with former being a teacher. Like I need an explanation. That's okay. You don't like it. Give me something that's valid of why you don't like it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just me. And I'm not hearing anything valid so far.
Yeah, no. And so it's just there's probably the only one thing for me that was frustrating in Game On was the fact that Stella, as a business owner, suddenly had all this time to attend all the events that she never had time for before. But at the same time, she's being blackmailed for $3 million to save her dumbass brother. So she's going to figure out a way to make the time for this idiot Tyler. So I can understand that frustration, but also like we don't base the whole book about it. And then a lot of people are like, oh, AJ didn't have enough screen time. I'm just supposed to believe that there's chemistry there. Well, yeah, there's history between
they're like
her and
childhood
Stella.
friends.
Yeah, like they have, that's explained.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think my down the rabbit hole issue with this series as a whole is I feel like people all expected 3 books of Lights Out. And when that didn't happen, they were upset about it. Even though Navessa Allen, the author, repeatedly told you that that is not what we're doing. And I think there was an expectation to meet a standard that, frankly, I don't know if Navessa herself could ever achieve. She wasn't writing 3
She doesn't want to write 3. Yeah, she don't want to write. That would be, I feel like, boring as a writer to write 3 of the same character doing the same thing. And some writers do that, and they have fun with that and playing with the same trope. I don't think that's Navessa's style. And how dynamic of a writer she is. She wants to explore all these different sorts of taboo topics. And she does that because mask kinks aren't just the only taboo topic. And she explored a kink that I know I don't like because I cringed at it. That didn't take away from the book and her writing. I just knew this wasn't for me.
There's a 3-star Goodreads where she's like, oh, there's a humiliation kink and that's a gag. It's not for me. So like rated it lower because of that. Again, to your point of that is your opinion showing and not really a reflection of the first part of the review where you're saying that Navessa Allen pushed the envelope, did something different, wrote something different from her normal review, normal things that we all said. It's on brand that it's even more kinky or darker or taboo, more so than the other two books, because that's deliberate. She's telling us that in advance. And so for someone to say like, oh, well, I'm not into that, so therefore less stars, Navessa's pushing the envelope of exploring some more darker themes. And while that doesn't all have to be for you, I think she hit every target she was setting out to hit as an author for these books. And that was where my thoughts were reading them is what is she trying to do? Where is she trying to take us? What are we trying to get from this? And do I believe that these characters could be in this situations based on the way that she's writing it? Yeah. I mean, I think that's where you need to take yourself and like what you like in the bedroom and wherever else out of the equation because it's not about you. You aren't.
It's about the characters. Yeah.
Right.
And that, I mean, a lot of people, they do read themselves into their characters, and that helps them with processing the world. I know a lot of people do that like in fantasy books, and it helps them with processing and whatnot. But I feel like with these books, unless you've gone through the very specific traumas and the very specific intricacies of their character development and their plot, you're not fully going to understand their actions as if you imprint yourself on those characters. You're not the characters. So again, I'm not a Brat King person. That was just like, oh, whoa. No, I discovered that. Thank you, Navessa, for letting me know that is not my thing.
Yeah.
But that didn't impact and how I understood that is an important aspect of Tyler's character and Stella's character also in taking control over her life and herself in the bedroom and all this different aspects. Like, that's just an important part of their character development.
Agree. I think that kind of concludes my down the rabbit hole of it just, there has been, because of the popularity of this book, it got picked up by Netflix, Lights Out is going to be made by Netflix. And there was a lot of hype to Game On coming out and just hype in general to the whole series, and everyone saying like, I hope it's better than Caught Up, and which again, same thing. The expectation for her to hit a mark that was never on the board is just crazy to me. And I think it speaks to something we've talked about a lot of times in Down the Rabbit Hole, which is our own Bookstagram and book talk world being toxic and maybe not helpful. I think it just speaks to that world of, hey, you're entitled to your opinion, 100% you are. How much of your opinion is projection and not actually a true book review? Because there's a
valid assessment.
But correct. There's a distinct difference between the two. Like someone commenting 1 star and saying, what the fuck did I just read, is not a review. That's not a review.
That's why we need rubrics.
Correct. Exactly.
That's why we need rubrics. I feel like to do a book review, you should have a rubric. There should be one embedded on Goodreads. Rubric, do you hit these things?
Right. Exactly. Well, now that Goodreads now has like a DNF button. So like, oh, I didn't finish it. You can put your DNF reviews now. Which again, if we
should you review if you DNF?
Right. I don't know. That's a topic for another day. Is it fair to the book if you are DNFing it and you're just putting it in a DNF column? And like, what does that do to the author, like their stats? Because we know that the authors get statistics from Goodreads, and that a lot weighs on that. Like their Goodreads score matters, where they fall in line for that from an award perspective. All of that matters a great deal. How many people have reviewed it? How many people DNF it? All those percentages are going to matter a lot. And I wonder if now this DNF category is going to have a significantly negative impact on our authors. Right. More to come with that, because that just recently happened to where that's open now. So I guess we'll see.
Okay. Well, now it's time for our mystery Q&A. These questions have not been shared with either of us prior to asking. I have an important question for you. How do you like your bananas? And I don't mean size and shape. I mean, how do you like your bananas? like, this is a big topic. It's a big debate. Do you like them like yellow and green? Do you like them like yellowish with a little green? Do you like spots?
Okay.
Do you like browner? Like, how do you like your bananas?
I have never been asked this question.
It's an important one.
I mean, I like them fresh from the grocery store because I feel like you put it on your counter
Okay.
and turn around for 30 seconds and it's all brown,
Okay.
honestly.
Fair. Yes. Florida
So
humidity does
basically,
not help.
day of grocery store purchase. Same with avocados. There's like no help.
But are you
for
you
either of those.
purchasing the ones that have like some spots still on them, or
No,
are
they're
they
green.
like they're
I hope
green?
that they're
Okay.
like the greenest possible.
Okay.
Not like plantain green, but like because like I just said, if they're yellow when you buy them, same day. You better eat those things in the same day. Otherwise, may as well just line them up for banana bread because it's not happening.
I mean, which is the very important aspect of having bananas is you get to make banana bread. So,
Yes, this is true. Often. Number of times I've made banana bread is I can probably count on one hand. I wish that I
really?
made it more. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wish I made it more.
It's so good.
The bananas end up getting eaten. That's the thing.
Okay.
And also the fact that we were just talking about spice, I had no idea that you actually meant real bananas. So it's very good that I asked you for a clarifying question of what do you mean? Because I was not sure what you meant. I was like, really? We're going to ask that?
No. When I said
I was very surprised that you were going to ask
the
that.
fruit, Danny. That's I mean,
I was like,
I don't. You also have a young child, so I know, like with my child, if you're like, no, there are too many spots on this, and like it's a perfectly good banana, so she just no spots whatsoever.
No, he doesn't.
So
he doesn't even care about that. My son is oblivious to any spots on bananas.
Such a
yeah.
I'm also. It needs to be kind of the stem has to be green. If there's brown on it, it's too. I don't know. There's like a mushiness. There's
the texture.
No,
it's a texture thing.
Yeah,
now
can't.
We're coming up against the texture thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, my question for you is: so we've got the 2 new ACOTAR books coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to do a full reread of everything in preparation? Do you think?
I'm already almost done with my reread of Throne of Glass. So
Holy crap.
I am on Empire of
Audio?
Yeah, I'm doing audio.
Okay.
So yeah, almost done. I have 2 more books left. I ran out of Audible credits. So that will be done. And then I just finished Crescent City like a year ago. So I'm not gonna reread Crescent City because it's still kind of fresh in my mind. ACOTAR, it's been like 4 years. I think.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. So I might go through ACOTAR again. And do that. But yeah. What about you?
I feel like I need to reread ACOTAR and maybe Crescent City if I get the time. I don't know that I need Throne of Glass is the freshest in mind of all of the series for me.
Mm-hmm.
ACOTAR is very far away because it was my first as well. And then I just like Crescent City. That's my favorite. Yeah. So I might read
Crescent City's thick.
It's really long too.
She's thick.
Yeah.
3 thickies.
I know. But also, so then that begs the question, like, will we read others ahead of it? And I think the answer is no, because we were so tied into Brimstone and Quicksilver. I feel no need to reread either of those. I've already reread them multiple times before the 3rd book for that comes out. And then Crowns of Nyaxia. I don't think I need to reread those either.
We deep dived the entire series.
Yes. Right. So that's the thing is like we never deep dove ACOTAR or literally. We never deep dove any of the ACOTAR series because they've been talked about at length. So I think I just haven't done a reread either in so long. So comment below if you're going to be doing a reread. I'd be very curious to know. Let us know. And that's my question.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next on Book Club After Dark.
Yes, next week we are going to be talking about Road of Bones by Demi Winters, and we're looking forward to exploring this novel with you. This was a book talk sensation, a bookstagram sensation. I loved this book. It was highly recommended by our girl Natalie from Not Just Cakes. She told us about it when we were at Romantasy Book Con, and she was 100% right that it became super popular and well deserved. So we're really excited to talk about Road of Bones.
Yeah. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on Game On or suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message us on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
So visit our website, bookclubafterdark.co, to stay up to date on our cozy content and check out our merch.
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.